There is a buzz in New York City, and when Madison Square Garden is sold out for a big event, it just feels different in the Big Apple. Well, when number 2 Duke comes to town, there is...
Duke basketball returns to Cameron North as the Blue Devils take on the Fighting Illini at Madison Square Garden this Saturday at 8 o'clock in a game that is very unusual this time of year. This would be a game that should be played in, maybe late November, December, early December, right? So, and it was certainly a game that on paper a month and a half ago looked like it could have been a matchup between, a top 3 team and a top 15 team. And unfortunately, Illinois has had illness and injuries, and they're not quite in the same spot that they were. But this is going to be a very hungry Illinois team that needs a win right now. And I think it's going to be a very good game between Duke and Illinois.
So just like how you circled the Clemson game, and you were spot on for that being a big test for Duke, I've circled this game. Now, admittedly, the casting for the show of Duke versus Illinois is a little bit different with, as you alluded to, the illnesses, major injury, which you'll talk about, I'm sure. And on Duke's side, we know that Malik Brown is not going to be playing in this game and may be out for a couple of weeks. And we're certainly hoping we can get him back for this season. And I don't know how many of our listeners saw that at the end of the last Duke game, Mason Gillis was limping. And I got to hope that it was nothing more than a little roll of the ankle or something. He stayed in the game when it happened, but everybody saw it. And so let's just hope he's okay.
Agreed. And I think that's a great segue because one of the, the post-game press conference, it was Coach Shire and Evans and Con Knipple up there. And, we had it maybe in different orders, but for our medals from last game, those were gold and silver, right? So it was fun to see them both up there. The one thing that my biggest takeaway from that, other than the news on Malik Brown, which we're certainly hoping that he can be back, I would say realistically, the ACC tournament seems like, the most realistic timeline, probably the most optimistic timeline rather than realistic, but they just have to wait to see over the next couple of days how the pain, how Malik is able to manage the pain, and if the pain can go away, then they can get a better sense of his timeline. Is what
I think you just have to be clear. It's a dislocated shoulder that we're talking about that happened on this strange play where he had completely extended his arm. And I think the ball just nicked him in a bad position, but his arm was completely extended and it sure looked painful.
And he was playing really well. So it's a real shame. And I really hope Duke can get him back. But for now, it's, next man up mentality. And Gangba has shown, plenty of promise in his minutes that he's gotten since Malik got hurt the first time. And he's even had some minutes since Malik has come back. And he played well in the game at Virginia, coming in the second half to replace Malik. So got to keep hoping, not hoping, but you got to keep rolling with Gangba, who's played well in his limited minutes. The one thing I want to mention, on a positive note, since we brought up Malik and Mason, was Isaiah Evans gave a lot of credit to both Malik Brown and Mason Gillis for being, leaders and mentors to him. And they asked a question about having Malik Brown as a teammate, and that's what led to Isaiah Evans talking about it. And he said, more than anything, it's his ability to help off the court and the advice that he's able to give him. And he also said Mason Gillis is really important with this as well. And that Evans, said, when he's on the bench or if he, messed up a defensive assignment, that those guys have been really helpful for him in, figuring out what he needs to do better. And that, along with the coaching staff, I'm sure we've seen like a huge progression from Isaiah Evans defensively from the start of the season, where he would miss assignments or he would not make the right rotation. And now, that Virginia game was, I think, a great example of how much better he's got. Like, he had a couple of blocks. His rotations were really good. He's doing a really good job of like walling up and not fouling. Like, his defense, and Coach Shire he said, everyone knows about his shooting. I think everyone can see that. But he said, the thing he wants to give Evans a lot of credit for is his defense and how much better he's gotten on that end of the court. And he said, despite the fact that some games he plays more than others, he's, still coming in with the same attitude and mentality. So really, for Isaiah Evans this season, coming in as a top 15 recruit and not playing in a couple of the key games, a lot of other guys could have taken that negatively and not responded well, especially in today's transfer era. So you got to give a lot of credit to Isaiah Evans for how he's responded to the situation and how he has played in the back half of the season.
The only thing I'd add to that is we also saw the versatility in his shot selection, because, we'll always refer to Quick Draw as just taking 3-pointers, but he had 2 terrific drives that he finished but didn't count on layups from the right side, where he used the whole backboard, which is very, very modern era of, thinking of the bank shot and laying it in, which is effectively the guards have learned how to use the entire backboard for another angle to get over players. So I think that was also encouraging.
I agree. I think, as a quick aside, I mean, there's definitely somebody before him, but I feel like Kyrie, since this is a Duke basketball channel, right? Like, I feel like he was a guy who really made that very prominent with his ability to just put it on the glass with different spin, high up on the right, high up on the left, bottom left corner, etc. His ability to finish around the rim, I think, and his popularity, I think, really is, gone to the next generation. So shout out Kyrie. All right, so this game against Illinois is a really fun matchup on paper. We don't necessarily know who's going to be there for Illinois. They've had just a really rough stretch of late with illness and injury. And Coach, Brad Underwood, this matchup, Illinois is 17-10. They're 9-8 in conference play. Duke is 23-3, 15-1 in conference play. So it does on paper kind of also look like a mismatch if you just look at the records. But, Illinois, you look at the efficiency rating, they are 21st in the country in terms of their efficiency. They're 15th on offense and 31st on defense. They're pretty good on both ends of the court. And they stack up similarly in terms of their net ratings to like a Louisville or a Clemson. And both of those games, I mean, we played Louisville before they really got on a run, so we kind of caught them at the right time, and we know how close that Clemson game was. So the records might say one thing, but the team statistics say something else. And so I think this is going to be a really good game.
I think that with the drop in their top 25 status, with their 9-8 record in the Big Ten, they are still a potential tournament team. And what makes this really good for Duke is we're on a neutral court, and it could be like in Illinois because of how they faded a bit here. That would be one of the teams you might see in the first or second round. And that's why I still really like this game. Now, it would have been a different game if they were completely healthy. And Jack, you'll go through all of that. But I like it for the test of, wait a minute, this could be a team like this is somebody you could play in the first round or two.
Yeah, absolutely. This could be an 8-9 seed based off of how they're finishing the season. Depending on how their end of the season goes, they could be. They could certainly finish much higher than the 8-9 seed if they get on a run. With how their metrics grade out, and playing in the Big Ten is certainly helpful. Even though they have 10 losses on the season, they could finish as a 5 or a 6 seed if they go on a run to end the season. So I think it's very important, and they are led by Kasparis Yakunishis. Who
one more time?
Yeah, wait, I think I messed that up actually. So I'm glad you said that. Yakunoshis. Yakuchonis. I got it right the last time. Yakuchonis. Thank you. Yakuchonis. Took me 3 times, but I got there. Yakuchonis. Now I'm just having fun with it. Yakuchonis, he's really talented, okay? He's a 6'6". He's basically a 6'6" point guard for Illinois. And he averages 15 points a game, 5 rebounds, about 5 assists, and a steal. His 3-point shooting, he's not very efficient, and that's kind of a theme, which I'll get into in a little bit later with Illinois. But he's tremendous at operating out of the pick and roll. He's a really good passer. He can create a shot for himself. He just sets up the offense. The one thing with Yakuchonis is that since he's returned he had like an injury that caused him to miss a couple of games about 11 games ago. His efficiency from 3, this is when he's really kind of fallen off. He had a run before that where he was like scoring 20 points a game, like every game. And since he's come back from injury, he's been at about 25% from 3, and his turnovers are up. And so turnovers you sort of understand because he's turned into the offense for Illinois, but the shooting being down is certainly a concern. You hope, if you're an Illinois fan, that having a little bit more rest in between. They played Tuesday, Duke played Monday. Tuesday to Saturday, you get a little bit more time. Maybe they can regroup. I think it's important for the Illinois team. He's their point guard. Their center is Tomislav Ivisic. And Ivisic is the brother of Zvonimir Ivisic, who last year played at Kentucky and followed, I should say, Coach Calipari to Arkansas. They're fun to watch, both the Ivisicis. Tomislav,
the brothers.
Yeah, the brothers. Yeah, he's listed at 7'1", 255 pounds. He's averaging 12 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, and a block. He's a really good passer. Early on in the season, they ran a lot more of the offense through him. Now it's much more through Yakuchonis. But when he gets the opportunity, he can really pass the ball. He can shoot the 3 as well, but again, not quite as efficient as you'd probably like. He didn't start the last game, I should say. He traveled on his own with whatever illness that has affected this Illinois team. Coach Underwood said he's never seen anything like it, and it's been going through the program for the last 3 weeks. I do expect him to be ready for this game against Duke. Go ahead.
Talk about running an ISO.
This is what we do.
No. Not you, Jack. The idea that they sent him on his own to the game. There are plays where we're running an ISO for this isolation play for this guy. Wow. They sent him he had to go to the game on his own. Holy isolation.
True. The way it was reported was he wasn't going to go, and then he decided last minute he wanted to give it a shot, so he went on his own. So I guess it sounds better that way than please sure don't travel with us, right? But to your point, yeah, they put him on an island. Will Riley. We're going to keep rolling through the Illinois roster here. He's super talented. Like Cooper Flagg, he reclassified. Depending on where you look, he was like a top 20, top 25 recruit. He had 30 points in his first ever game as a freshman. 6'8", 195. He can really score the ball. Mostly comes off the bench. 12 points a game, 4 rebounds, 2 assists for Riley. Kylan Boswell starts at the 2 guard to Yakchonis. He's a secondary playmaker. Duke fans might remember Boswell. He was a part of Arizona for the past 2 years. He was on the Arizona team last year that beat Duke at Cameron. And he's a physical guard who can really defend. He's struggled with his three-point shot this year. After shooting about 38% this year, he's somewhere around 24%. So it's, again, kind of a theme with the Illini program. Now, this is where, one of their big injuries is Morez Johnson, who's a really talented freshman, listed at 6'9", 255. To start the year, he was coming off the bench to, kind of spot Ivisic. Then they started playing him with Ivisic, so they were pretty big up front. He just broke his wrist. It's a huge loss for Illinois. He averaged 7 points and 6 rebounds and a block, but those numbers don't really tell the full story because he had limited minutes and his role increased as the year went on. He's their best rebounder on a per-minute basis, and that's really important because Illinois, one of their strengths, they're the second best rebounding team in the country, not the Big Ten, in the country. And so to lose their best rebounder really dampens that aspect. They're still a really good rebounding team, but they may not be a great rebounding team without Johnson, who is just an incredible rebounder, not just defensively, but offensively. He's just great at going to get the ball, and they're going to really miss him. He broke his wrist, I should say, and they have him listed as out indefinitely. He will not play against Duke this Saturday.
So how big is the front? Because I'm always looking, is this a game that they'll try to focus on him on offense? Does he have that opportunity with guy out?
He should. So against Wisconsin, they started Ben Humrikaus. They've got, I gotta say, just as a side note, they've got some great names on this Illinois roster. I'm struggling over here.
You wouldn't want to be the play-by-play guy for Illinois.
Well, I would want to be their play-by-play guy because I would, as the season went on, you would think you'd get better at it. But I wouldn't want to be, the play-by-play guy at another Big Ten school. It's like, I got to learn these names. This is a challenge.
Jack, what about the poor guy who's got the game for ESPN and he's never done Illinois before?
I mean, that's a good point. It also reminds me of being at the Virginia game. The what do they call it? The announcer, the PA announcer, when they're doing the pregame intros. He couldn't get out "Come on, Malawach." He was stumbling all over it, and he just kind of murmured something and moved on. Is basically how they ended it. But to your question, I think Ivisic starts. So, and I think that he's 7'1", 255. So that should take away a bit of the lob threat. He doesn't move exceptionally well. Like Johnson is a tremendous athlete. And so even though he's 6'9", I don't think the lob threat would be there against him. Against Ivisic, there might be opportunities because he's not quite as fleet on his feet. But he does have tremendous size, and so when he's in the paint, which I think he will be, I think it will make it tough for Mal. But I think, when we run our cuts from the baseline or from the corner, there will be opportunities for Duke to score around the basket. So just quickly, other guys for Illinois, I mentioned Humrikaus. Was a 6'9", 225 forward. Really fascinating story. Started at the NIA level. Spent 3 years there. Transferred to Evansville last year where he was shooting like 38% from three. Struggled a bit this year from three. But pretty cool for a guy to go from NIA to Evansville to Illinois. So awesome story for him. Trey White. Oh, he's also 6'9", 225, which is important. not the best defender, but he can.
Well, when he was at Evansville, it wasn't too hard to scout him.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Evansville may have some guys.
No, but it's Evansville is if it's the Illinois school, Evansville, Illinois, that it
Oh,
could
I
have
see what
been
you. Yes, absolutely.
could have been as easy as one of the assistant coaches was, driving to the Illinois game and stopped to watch Evansville. It goes, oh, wait a minute, we should get this guy. He's like not that far from us.
I'm just surprised he started the NAIA level. Just because he's 6'9", it's not like he's a 6'3" guard or something. So maybe he had a late growth spurt. I didn't see anything on that. Trey White was another guy who's affected by illness. He missed a couple games. 6'7", 210-pound forward. Dre Gibbs Lawhorn, another good name. 6'1", 185-pound guard. He's a little bit like Isaiah Evans, and I don't mean it in the way they play, but I mean it in his production. Like, he's had some really big scoring games. He only averages 7 points, but when given the opportunity on a handful of games throughout the season, he's gone for 15 to 17 points. So you never know with Gibbs Lawhorn. And to round out the rotation, Jake Davis is a three-point shooter. He's the best shooter on the team on the season at 36%. Which says a lot about the three-point shooting efficiency for this Illinois team. And then Kerry Booth is a 6'10" transfer from Notre Dame. I would not have brought him up except for all of the illness and injuries. He's kind of moved back into the rotation a little bit as like the 8th or 9th man, depending on who's available. I've mentioned this a few times. They shoot a ton of threes. Illinois shoots a ton of threes. And by a ton of threes, I mean like they are, I think they lead the Big Ten. They are top 10 in the nation in three-point attempts, and they are bottom 50 in percentage, which is very reminiscent of Louisville when Duke played Louisville. And if anyone remembers, Louisville could not miss to start that game against Duke. They're nailing all of their threes. And so losing 2 games in a row, their backs are not against the wall, but this is a very hungry team. I expect Illinois to hit a good amount of threes to start this game against Duke.
What was their average points per game? And I guess it would make a difference if it was like, for the season versus the last 4 games, 5 games.
Yeah, so for the season, they average 84 points a game.
Wow.
In conference play, they average 81 points a game. And I'm glad you brought that up because one of the big differences between the two teams is the tempo. And the reason why, part of the reason why they score so many points is they just play at a really high pace. They're top 15 in terms of, your adjusted tempo on KenPom. Duke, so they're 15th. They're 15th in tempo. Duke is 278th. And that can be a recipe for an upset when you've got teams that play at very different paces. If this Illinois team can get it going at the pace they want, I guess in theory it could work out, but I don't know. The way Duke's played the past couple of games, I don't think that's a good idea. With the way Duke has shot the ball, with the different guys who have scored. The last game it was, as you pointed out, Kahn, Evans, and Cooper, they all had about 17 points. And the game against Stanford, it was again like a real, okay, every game's Cooper Flag, but the other guys change each game, right? And that's what makes Duke so dangerous in that, Cooper's going to go get his 20, but you don't know if tonight it's going to be Proctor or Knipple or Sion James or Malawach is going to get 15 or Evans is going to pop off the bench or Gillis. And that's what makes this Duke team really hard to play against.
So, let's see. I still feel good that we're playing in Cameron North. It's generally, Duke feels like it's their second home there, though it's probably there's probably only two guys that have experienced that for Duke. And even Shire as coach, but Shire as coach and as a player has probably had several opportunities to play in the Garden. Um, Here's what I'm looking for, Jack, and that is obviously Gangba is going to be pressed into service here. He is going to get 15 to 17 minutes. And that's unless we go back to what Coach Shire said the last time Malik Brown was injured, he was trying to up the minutes for Kaman Malowich. I think he'll ride Mal for as long as he can, but Mal tends to, I don't know, guy never, mid to upper 20s is really what I think he can get. And therefore, can Patrick have a good game and be effective? We've seen some really nice moves, unlike Malowich, who doesn't have a true shot around the basket. Gangba does. Second thing is, to your point, who is the guy that's going to add to Cooper Flagg? And probably, I'm going to say we can count on Con Knipple. So who is it going to be? Is it going to be Sion? Is it going to be Isaiah Evans again? Hard to think that it'll be two in a row. So look for somebody else to step up. But the third thing that I'm gonna say is, given their pace and how they want to run, Duke is going to having trouble with this. I would normally say Duke's defense keys their offense, and that's why their pace is a little slow, because they're always aggressive on their defense. But we learned their defense did hurt a little when Malik was out last time. That his ability to get there and the deflections, he is a critical piece. And I was just trying to do the math on this. I don't think we see, you said optimistically the ACC tournament. I think with a dislocated shoulder, it may not be till the first week of the March Madness. And if Coach Shire is questioning, is he ready yet? And can we withstand games 1 and 2 of the 6-game win streak? He'll hold him out for another week, but in actual time, it's like 4 to 5 weeks. It's not a lot of time. So, I think he's going to ask everyone to step up on defense, but the adjustment is going to explain why, when we get there, my projected score of the game.
A couple of things. So, to your point on Malowich, not only is it, his conditioning, which I think some of it is he's 7'2", and it's just hard to. It takes time to build up that level of endurance, I think, and I think we gotta give him credit for that. And we kind of got a sense of how hard he was pushing it in the NC State game, as I'm sure we all remember, and it's gonna be really important, that he is able to play. Let's just call it 25 minutes, and Gangba's at 15. And the reason why I say that is because it's very interesting. I would say Duke's strength as a defense is their ability to protect the paint, especially with Malawach out there, and make it tough to score, from 2-point range. And at times they've been a little bit susceptible to other teams shooting threes. Illinois is a really good team at scoring from 2-point range. They shoot 57% from 2-point range, and they also draw, they get to the free throw line quite a bit. And so both of those things give me a little bit of concern about Malawach getting into foul trouble. Having said that, I'm sure some of those numbers are the way they are because of Morez Johnson and his impact on the game. And so you have to take those with a grain of salt because he's not going to be available. The other thing I wanted to say was, on Malik, the timing is, timing's bad. Timing sucks. I don't, there's no other way to go about it. As you said, there's just not much time left in the season. I'm going to try to spin this positively, though. And I'm sure all of us Duke fans remember, with Kyrie Irving and his toe. And he comes back for Duke, I think, in the NCAA tournament. I think in the NCAA tournament.
He tried it. He tried to play in the first game.
Yeah, and when he came back, it seemed like the team's chemistry was a little bit off because, it's Kyrie Irving. When he comes back, you got to give him the ball. And Nolan Smith, I think it was Nolan Smith and Singler were still on that team, and their roles had kind of adjusted, right? And it was a little bit hard to kind of find the chemistry when Kyrie came back at that point in the season. The positive here is that Malik, he just fits in. It's not like you've got to change what you're doing. He just kind of comes onto the court and just helps what you're already doing and makes it better. And so I think whenever he's ready to go, it's going to be seamless, kind of like it was when he came back for the North Carolina game. So that is one thing that it's a really tough time for him to get hurt, but I think when he comes back, he will be able to kind of just get right back into the swing of things, even though it's going to be a very intense environment when he comes back because it's going to be, win or go home.
Well, yes, and let me ask you this. This is it for his eligibility, right?
No. He's only
Why?
a junior.
Oh.
Yeah, I understand why you said that. Sion James, this is his 5th year. Mason Gillis, this is actually his 6th year. He redshirted his first year at Purdue. And Cameron Sheffield actually has the 4th transfer. He has 1 more year of eligibility as well. So not, James and Gillis are gone after this year, but Brown and Sheffield theoretically could stick around for 1 more year.
All right. The other part of my observation, he is not a projected draft choice.
No.
So, knowing Coach Shire, the little bit that I do, he will not play him and jeopardize his ability to be around for a 4th year and somehow have a chance to be a late 2nd round draft pick. He is not going to play him unless he is 100% certain that he's healthy enough to play.
And since you brought that up, it just reminded me of one other thing, which was that, and this really has no reason to be in this particular video, but I've been thinking about it, is that Tyrese Proctor, is projected as a mid-second round pick. And I wonder if Proctor might stick around for his senior year because the NIL money that he'll get at Duke versus being a 2nd round pick and probably playing in the G League, he might make more at Duke. And so I think it could be one of those circumstances where the NIL actually helps a player stick around an extra year in college. That was it.
Well, they have, 3 top, the Boozer twins and 1 other top one. There's only 3 that I think are coming.
I think they've got 4, but I couldn't tell you. I'll have to look it up. I'll try to look it up right now who the other 2 guys are. I'm with you. I only know the Boozers as of right now.
Right, because one of the Boozers is a point guard.
Yes.
And therefore, Proctor could, if they don't win the champion, if Malik's injury, they get him enough, they get everybody enough ALI money. You and I can definitely have our different opinion of, like, does Cooper Flagg stay or does he just go and, do what everyone thinks he will do? And I sit there and I go, wow, if they don't win the championship, it's one of those times where they may all stay for a championship run of the conversation they have amongst themselves. So we'll see what happens. But
one thing on Proctor is he's shown this year he can play on the ball, he can play off the ball. And so I think that helps, with wherever he decides to go. I think that's very helpful. And just to quickly answer that question, the other 2 guys on ESPN are ranked 30 and 35. Shelton Henderson, who they describe as a big-bodied wing, and Nicholas Kamenia. Not sure about Kamenia. They didn't live no description there.
So this is, with 4 players coming in, this is a year where they could, depending on who goes into the transfer portal, this is a year where a conversation could be had if they don't win the championship to say they want to do it. They're kids.
We shall see. We shall see. And also who decides to enter the draft as well. Those, the portal, the draft, those are the 2 areas to watch at the end of the season. But we've got plenty of time to enjoy this team, and that's what I'm going to continue to do. So, what is your score prediction for this game?
So I think our defense is not as sharp, and their offense is really good, will challenge them. Scores a lot of points, 84 points per game, as you said, overall, 81 in the conference. So I've got Duke winning. I'm not going to pick against my boys, 85-80.
That's very fair. I actually went a little bit higher than you. I have Duke winning this game 92-82. I think we're very close score-wise here. I think it's a lot of fun that we have no idea what the other person has as the prediction until we say it out loud. So that makes this good because we're all learning in real time. And I think Illinois will get the pace the game to go a little bit faster. And I think Duke will enjoy that, quite frankly. And I just think they'll put up 90 against this Illinois team that, without Morez Johnson, especially when Avicic is not on the court, they just don't have rim protection. And while their perimeter defenders are solid, if Duke gets past it, and the really big problem for Illinois, they don't have anybody who can guard Cooper Flagg. Now, most teams don't, but they really are going to have a problem, I think, guarding Cooper Flagg. We've seen some teams in the ACC do better than others, right? Like Dontrez Styles did pretty well at NC State. He gave Cooper a little bit of trouble. It's that like 6'6", 6'7", athletic, physical forward that can give him a little bit of trouble. Like KJ Adams earlier in the season gave him a little bit of difficulty. Watching them, looking up and down the roster, I just don't see that guy. So I think Cooper, I'll make one bonus prediction. I think he's going to go for 30.
Whoa. Well, if he's going to go for 30, then I'm going to monitor StubHub and see if it's 2 hours away, the Garden, from where I live. And and I'll be looking to see if there's somebody for some reason dumps their tickets because who knows? They have an illness in their family. A couple hours before the game, these really good seats appear. And I think if that happens, that's my best shot at watching Cooper Flag in college.
It's Cooper
except
Flag.
when he comes back next year.
Good luck. Good luck to you. It's Cooper Flag. It's Madison Square Garden. It's Cameron North. It's going to be a good time. Saturday, 8 o'clock. We'll be here, or at least I'll be here. I mean, maybe you won't if you go to the game. Post game, 10 o'clock Eastern time. Make sure you tune back in to Talking Ball. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment below, share it with your Duke basketball friends, and we'll see you guys next time. Also, previews are available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Do you have one other thing? Go ahead.
And drop us your projected score in the chat.
There you go. Drop it in the comments below. And we'll see you guys, or at least I'll see you guys, post-game Saturday. Peace.